My name is Alara Westbrook. I am 29 years old, and I learned the hard way that being dependable can make you invisible to the people who use you the most. The night everything changed, I was standing in my parents' dining room with a half-empty glass of water in my hand, listening to my brother laugh like he had already won a game I never agreed to play. He leaned back in his chair, looked across the table and said, I would always be his shadow. Not his sister, not his equal, his shadow. My parents did not correct him. They smiled. Then one of them said he had made the family proud, while I had only embarrassed them by being so ordinary. The room went quiet for half a second, the kind of quiet that usually makes me swallow my anger and help clear the plates. But that night, something inside me did not break. It clicked into place. I looked at the golden sun they loved bragging about, then at the parents who had spent years calling me stable only when they needed money, and I smiled softly. I said that was fine. If he was the one who made them proud, then from now on, he could cover the mortgage, the home loan, the insurance, the truck payment, and every bill I had been quietly paying while they praised him for saving the family. My parents stared at me like I had spoken another language. One of them whispered, "What money?" I turned to my brother, and for the first time all night his smirk disappeared. I said, "Go ahead. Tell them." His face went pale before anyone else understood why. "Before I tell you what happened after that, tell me what the weather is like where you are right now. Is it calm, stormy, or heavy, like the silence in that room?" Stay with me, because what came out next did not just change one dinner, it changed my entire family. To understand why that one question made my brother turn pale, you have to understand the role I played in my family long before that dinner. I was not the exciting one. I was not the child my parents posted about on Facebook with long captions and proud emojis. I was Alara, the one who remembered passwords, refilled prescriptions, printed insurance forms, drove across town when something broke, and somehow always had enough money to help when everybody else had a reason they could not. My brother Nolan was different. He was older than me, louder than me, and somehow treated like proof that the Westbrook family had produced someone important. He worked in commercial real estate, or at least, that was what he told people. Every family dinner came with a new story about a property investor who loved him, a deal that was about to close, or a client who said he was a natural-born closer. My parents ate those stories like dessert. My father Warren had spent most of his life believing a man should look successful even when his bank account disagreed. My mother Cynthia cared deeply about how the family appeared to everyone at church, to the neighbors, and to relatives who only visited twice a year but judged like they paid rent. Nolan understood that about them. He wore good watches he could not afford, drove a truck that looked more successful than he was, and spoke in that smooth voice that made ordinary lies sound like future plans. I worked as an operations coordinator for a medical supply company in Charlotte. My job was not glamorous, but it was steady, organized, and useful. I managed shipments, solved vendor problems, tracked delays, and made sure hospitals got what they needed before a missing box became somebody else's emergency. At home, I became the same person. If my parents needed a bill found, I found it. If their online account was locked, I reset it. If a payment was late, I heard about it before anyone else did. Nolan would breeze in after the problem was fixed and say something charming like, "Good thing we have Alara for the boring stuff." Everybody would laugh. I laughed too, because laughing was easier than admitting it hurt. The word shadow started as a joke when we were kids. Nolan would run ahead, make friends, win attention, and I would follow carrying whatever he forgot. He called me his shadow because I was always there. My parents thought it was cute. By the time we were adults, it was not cute anymore. It had become a family rule nobody said out loud. Nolan stood in the light. I handled what happened behind it. If he brought takeout once, My mother called him generous. If I bought a week's worth of groceries, she said, thank goodness you were already going to the store. If Nolan gave my father a pair of golf gloves, my dad talked about it for a month. If I paid the homeowner's insurance before it lapsed, nobody mentioned it at all. That was how things worked in our family. Nolan received applause for gestures. I received requests for more help. And because I had trained myself to believe love meant being available, I kept showing up. I told myself they needed me. I told myself Nolan was just immature. I told myself my parents would notice one day. The worst lies are not the ones other people tell you. They are the ones you repeat until they sound like patience. The money started after my father retired earlier than planned. He had a shoulder injury that never healed right, and after months of trying to pretend he was fine, he left his job with less savings than my parents wanted to admit. At first, they acted like everything was under control. My mother still hosted dinners. My father still talked about fixing the deck, replacing the kitchen counters, maybe taking a road trip through the mountains. But bills do not care about pride. The first call came from my mother on a Tuesday night. She did not ask for money directly. She asked if I knew how to log into the mortgage portal because something was wrong with the payment screen. I drove over after work and found 3 overdue notices tucked under a stack of grocery coupons. My mother said it was just a timing issue. My father said pensions were complicated. Nolan said he had a commission coming and not to worry, because he had a system. His system was what he called the family bill account. He said my parents were too proud to accept help from their daughter, but they would accept help if it looked like he was managing things. He told me all I had to do was transfer money into that account when there was a gap, and he would make sure the right bills got paid. I asked why he could not do it himself. He gave me that warm brother smile and said, Ellie, I am putting out fires too. I am building something big. Just help me bridge the family through this rough patch. Nobody else can do what you do. I wish I had heard the warning inside that compliment. Nobody else can do what you do really meant. Nobody else will let us use them like this. The first month, I sent $400. The second month, it was $900. Then the mortgage needed help again. Then the home equity loan from the roof repair. Then the property taxes. Then the insurance. Then Nolan's truck payment. Because he needed that truck to meet clients and bring in the kind of money that would eventually pay me back. That was always the promise. Eventually. Soon. After this deal closes. When the market turns around. By next quarter. I was 26 when the transfers became routine. I had my own rent, my own student loan, my own car insurance, my own life that kept getting smaller every time someone else's emergency got bigger. I stopped going out with coworkers because dinner and drinks felt irresponsible when the mortgage was short. I delayed a dentist appointment because Nolan said the truck lender was calling him twice a day. I picked up weekend inventory shifts when my company needed extra help, then sent most of that extra pay to a family bill account I did not even control. The strange thing was that my parents started treating Nolan better the more I paid. My mother would say, "Your brother has really stepped up." My father would clap Nolan on the shoulder and call him the man of the family. Nolan never corrected them. He would just look down humbly, as if carrying a heavy burden, while I sat there with my bank app still warm from the transfer. Sometimes he would thank me privately. "You are saving us, Ellie. I mean it. I will make this right." But in public, he let them believe he was the one saving everyone. One night, after I covered $1,700 between the mortgage shortage and his truck payment, my mother posted a picture of Nolan at the dinner table with the caption, "Blessed to have a son who protects this family." I stared at that post in my apartment kitchen with a bowl of cheap soup in front of me and laughed once. It sounded nothing like happiness. By then, I had sent more than $54,000 over 3.5 years. I knew the number because I kept records. Not because I planned revenge. Not because I wanted to throw it in anyone's face. I kept records because numbers were the only part of my family that did not change their story to make Nolan look better. A transfer was a transfer. A date was a date. A payment confirmation did not care who smiled at dinner. It simply told the truth. The truth started cracking open because of an email that was not meant for me. My parents had an old desktop computer in the kitchen, the kind that made a tired humming sound and took 10 minutes to update every time someone turned it on. My mother called me over one Saturday morning because she said the screen was frozen and she could not print a flyer for a church fundraiser. I fixed the printer, cleared a dozen pop-ups, and opened the email tab to send the file to myself. That was when I saw the subject line from the mortgage company: payment received. I almost ignored it. Then I noticed the preview line: funded from account ending in 4421. My account. My personal checking account. Not the family bill account. Mine. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. The mortgage portal had stored the payment source history, and there it was, month after month, my account covering shortages, late fees, escrow gaps, and automatic payments that Nolan had told me were being routed through his system. He had not just used my money, he had linked my account directly to bills while telling everyone he handled them. In a folder on the desktop, I found screenshots Nolan had saved for my parents. Paid, confirmed, taken care of. Under some of them, he had typed short notes like, "Do not worry, I handled this one," or "Tell Dad he can relax." My hands went cold, but my mind became very clear. I did not yell. I did not call him. I did not wake my mother from her nap in the living room and demand an explanation. I finished printing her fundraiser flyer, drove home, and opened my laptop. For the next 2 days, I became the version of myself my family always underestimated: calm, detailed, precise. I pulled bank statements, transfer records, Venmo receipts, Zelle confirmations, mortgage emails, insurance confirmations, utility payments, and messages from Nolan asking for money while pretending to my parents that he had everything covered. I created a timeline. I did not make it emotional. I made it undeniable. Date, amount, bill, source, message from Nolan, family statement contradicting it. I found 1 week where I paid the home equity loan on Monday, the homeowner's insurance on Wednesday, and Nolan's truck payment on Friday. That same Saturday, my father had toasted Nolan at dinner for being the reason the family could breathe. I remember sitting at that same table with a headache, wondering if I had enough gas to get through the week. When the timeline reached $54,680, I stopped counting small things like groceries, medicine, and the emergency plumber. My stomach twisted, not from the money alone, but from how neatly everyone had arranged themselves around my silence. Then I took action. I canceled every recurring transfer. I removed my bank account from every portal I could access. I changed passwords for accounts I had created. I sent the truck lender a written notice that I was not responsible for payments on a loan in Nolan's name. I moved the same amount I used to send my family into my own savings account and stared at the confirmation until my eyes blurred. For the first time in years, money had moved in my direction. Nolan noticed within 48 hours. His first text was casual: "Hey, did the truck payment glitch?" His second came 20 minutes later: "Seriously, I need that cleared today." His third had no charm left: "Do not make this weird." I wrote back only one sentence: "You should talk to Mom and Dad." After that, he called 6 times. I did not answer. That afternoon, my mother texted the family chat about a Sunday dinner to celebrate Nolan's upcoming commercial deal. She said we should all be proud of how hard he had worked for the family. I looked at the message, then at the folder on my laptop labeled Westbrook Payments, and I understood something that made me almost peaceful. Nolan had built his stage on my back. On Sunday, I was going to let him stand on it alone. When I walked into my parents' house that Sunday, I brought a small dessert from a bakery my mother liked, and my laptop bag. I did not bring groceries. I did not bring paper towels. I did not bring a check. That alone made my mother look confused. She kissed my cheek and said, "Oh, you did not have to bring anything," in the voice she used when she absolutely expected me to bring something. My father was already in the dining room wearing a button-down shirt like this was an award ceremony. Nolan arrived 20 minutes late in a navy jacket, smelling like expensive cologne and talking before he even took off his coat. He said the market was brutal but winners knew how to move. He said a client had basically begged for his advice. He said once this next deal closed, everything would change. My parents glowed. Aunt Janice, who had come because family praise always needed an audience, leaned toward my mother and whispered that Nolan had such presence. I sat at the table and folded my napkin in my lap. The dinner went exactly the way I expected. My mother asked Nolan about his deal. My father asked if he needed new business cards. Aunt Janice said men like Nolan were rare these days. Nobody asked about my week until my mother noticed I was quiet and said, "Ilara, do not be gloomy tonight. This is your brother's moment." Nolan smiled across the room. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who thought I would never speak because I never had. Then he said it. "You know, Ellie, you will always be my shadow. You keep things organized, sure, but some people are born to lead. Some people are born to follow." My father chuckled. My mother gave a little sigh and said, "Your brother has made us proud in ways you do not understand." Aunt Janice added, "Every family needs someone steady in the background." The words landed one by one, but for once, they did not bury me. They cleared the ground. I put down my fork. Nolan leaned back like he had just won. I looked at him, then at my parents, and smiled softly. "Good," I said. "Then from now on, he can cover the mortgage, the home equity loan, the insurance, the utilities, his truck payment, and every other bill I have been paying while you praised him for protecting the family." My mother blinked. My father stopped chewing. Aunt Janice looked from me to Nolan like she had missed a joke. My mother said, "What money?" Her voice was thin. I turned to Nolan. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them." The color left his face so fast it almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. He laughed once, but it came out wrong. "Ellie is being dramatic. She helps here and there. She likes making things sound bigger than they are." I nodded, opened my laptop, and connected it to the living room TV before anyone could stop me. The first slide was simple. Westbrook household payments, 39 months, confirmed sources. My father said my name like a warning. I kept going. The next slide showed the mortgage payment history, dates, amounts, my bank account, then the home equity loan, then the insurance, then utilities, then Nolan's truck. My mother stood up slowly and moved closer to the screen. "That is not possible," she whispered. Nolan said, "She is twisting it." I did not even look at him. I clicked to the next slide. It showed a text from Nolan asking me to cover the mortgage gap because Dad cannot know how bad it is. Next to it was a screenshot from the family chat 2 hours later where he had written, "Do not worry. I handled the house payment." Aunt Janice made a small sound. My father turned to Nolan. "Is this real?" Nolan rubbed his jaw and said, "I was managing the situation. I was trying to protect everyone." "Protect them from what?" I asked. "The truth or the loss of your image?" He snapped, "You do not understand pressure." "I do," I said. "I understand paying bills while being told I am ordinary by the people using my money." I clicked again. The total appeared on the screen. $54,680. The room became so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. My mother sat down hard. My father stared at Nolan with a look I had never seen before. Not anger exactly. Confusion. Humiliation. A father realizing the son he worshipped had been wearing someone else's sacrifice like a suit. Nolan tried one more time. She offered. She wanted to help. Nobody forced her. I turned toward him. You are right. At first I offered to help. Then you lied, hid the payments, took credit, and let them call you the man of the family while I skipped meals and delayed medical appointments. That is not help. That is theft of trust. My mother started crying, but I could not tell if she was crying for me, for herself, or for the version of Nolan she was losing. My father asked Nolan to show one payment from his own account. Just one. Nolan looked at the table. He had nothing. That was the moment the golden sun finally looked small. I closed the laptop. I am not here to get the money back tonight, I said. I am here to end the lie. I will not pay the mortgage. I will not pay the home loan. I will not pay Nolan's truck. I will not be the quiet account you all drain while calling him successful. My mother whispered, "You cannot just stop." I said, "I already did." Nolan's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" I looked directly at him. "The truck payment is your responsibility now. So is the truth." He stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. "You are going to ruin everything." "No," I said. "I am going to stop holding everything up. If it falls, that is because you built it on me without permission." My father finally spoke, low and rough. "Ilara, why did you never tell us?" I almost laughed, but it would have sounded too sad. "Because every time I tried to be seen, you told me to stand behind him." I picked up my laptop bag and walked toward the door. My mother called after me, saying we needed to talk like a family. I stopped with my hand on the knob. A family tells the truth before they asks for another sacrifice. Then I left, and for the first time in my life, I did not look back through the window to see if anyone followed. My phone started buzzing before I reached the end of their street. First Nolan, then my mother, then my father, then Nolan again. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had 23 missed calls and a string of messages that changed tone so quickly they could have been written by different people. My mother said she was confused and hurt. My father said I had embarrassed him in his own house. Nolan said I was jealous, bitter, unstable, and obsessed with making him look bad. Aunt Janice wrote that money should never come between family, which was easy for her to say because none of the money had come from her. I did not respond that night. I made a sandwich, sat on the floor of my kitchen, and let the silence feel strange. For years, Sunday nights had meant checking balances, moving money, deciding which part of my own life could wait so someone else's life looked normal. That night, I did none of it. On Monday, the family story changed. My mother called twice before breakfast and left a voicemail saying Nolan may have made mistakes, but I had no right to shame him publicly. My father texted that he and my mother had sacrificed for me as a child, as if raising a daughter created a bill she had to pay forever. Nolan posted a vague quote online about snakes smiling at the family table. By lunch, a cousin I barely spoke to messaged me, saying she had heard I was trying to destroy my parents over money. That was the word everyone used, money, as if the amount was the problem, as if $54,000 was just a number and not years of my body living on stress, as if the lie did not matter. I wanted to defend myself to everyone. I wanted to send the whole file to every aunt, cousin, church friend, and neighbor who suddenly had opinions. But my therapist, who I had finally called after canceling the family payments, told me something simple during our first session. You do not have to submit evidence to people committed to misunderstanding you. So I chose 3 people who mattered, sent them a short version with receipts, and let the rest talk. Then the consequences began, not because I attacked anyone, but because I stopped paying for the fantasy. Nolan's truck lender called him within a week. The mortgage company sent my parents a notice when the automatic shortage payment did not appear. The home equity loan payment bounced because Nolan had been moving money around to make himself look current. My mother called crying, but when I picked up, the first thing she said was, Not sorry. It was, "Can you just help this one last time while we figure things out?" I said no. She went quiet, stunned by a word she had heard from me so rarely it sounded almost rude. My father got on the phone and said, "This is not who you are." I said, "No, this is exactly who I am when I stop being afraid of disappointing people who were fine, disappointing me." He hung up. Nolan came to my apartment 2 nights later without warning. I did not let him inside. He stood outside my door in the hallway, whisper yelling because he did not want my neighbors to hear. He said the truck was essential for his work. He said a client meeting depended on it. He said if he lost this deal, it would be my fault. I asked him if the client knew his successful image was being funded by his little sister. His face changed. For 1 second, I saw the panic under the anger. "You always wanted this," he said. "You always wanted to prove you were better than me." I shook my head. "I wanted you to tell the truth." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Help me this month, and I will explain everything to them." I almost believed him, because part of me still remembered the brother who used to let me ride on his handlebars when we were kids. But then I remembered the slide with my payment next to his message. I handled it. I said no again and closed the door. The next 2 weeks were ugly. My mother posted about ungrateful children. Aunt Janice called me cold. My father told a relative I had become obsessed with independence. Nolan called me a shadow trying to steal the spotlight. But shadows do not create light. They only appear when something blocks it. And when I stopped standing behind Nolan, everyone finally saw what he had been blocking. His truck was repossessed from a restaurant parking lot before a client lunch. Word spread faster than he expected. A commercial property client pulled out after discovering Nolan had exaggerated his recent closings and used family rescue stories to make himself seem responsible. His brokerage stopped giving him priority leads. Suddenly, the golden son could not drive, could not impress, and could not hide behind my bank account. My parents were forced to sit at their kitchen table with real bills, real numbers, and no daughter quietly making them disappear. For the first time, the Westbrook family had to live inside the truth. 3 months after that dinner, I saw Nolan at a hardware store on the edge of town. He was wearing a gray work shirt with a name tag, loading boxes onto a cart for a contractor who did not know or care that he used to brag about million-dollar properties. For a second, I felt the old reflex rise in me. Guilt. Pity. The urge to soften the consequences for someone who had never softened his words for me. Then he looked up and saw me. He did not smirk. He did not call me his shadow. He looked away first. I do not tell you that because I enjoyed seeing him humbled. I tell you because some people only learn the weight of responsibility when nobody else is carrying it for them. Nolan had lost the truck. He had lost the big client. He had lost the easy admiration that came from pretending to be the family's provider. What he had not lost was his life, his health, or his chance to become honest. That mattered to me. Revenge that destroys a person can poison the person holding it, but consequences that reveal the truth can free everyone, even the people who hate them at first. My parents changed more slowly. My mother sent me a long text 6 weeks after the confrontation. The first half was excuses. She said she had not known. She said Nolan had confused them. She said she and my father were overwhelmed. Then, near the end, there was one sentence that made me sit still for a while. She wrote, "We praised the child who made us look good and ignored the child who kept us safe." It was not a perfect apology, but it was the first honest thing she had said in years. My father did not text. He mailed a letter. His handwriting was shaky and crowded, like every word had fought him on the way out. He admitted he had liked believing Nolan was the strong one because it made him feel less like he had failed as a father. I would never again link my bank account to a bill that did not belong to me. If they needed help, they had to ask clearly, respectfully, and accept that no was a complete answer. Some relatives still think I was harsh, Aunt Janice once told me family should never keep score. I told her I agreed, but family should also never force one person to keep paying while everyone else pretends not to see the scoreboard. After the transfers stopped, my own life started opening in small ways that felt almost unreal. I built an emergency fund. I fixed my car before it became dangerous. I went to the dentist. I rented a small townhouse with morning light in the kitchen and no family bills hidden under my name. On the first Sunday I spent there, I made pancakes, drank coffee on the floor because my furniture had not arrived, and felt richer than I had ever felt while sending thousands of dollars to people who called me ordinary. Later, I joined a community financial wellness workshop through a nonprofit connected to my job. I did not stand up and tell my whole story, but I helped younger people understand simple things I wish someone had told me sooner. Do not confuse secrecy with kindness. Do not let anyone call your boundaries selfish when they benefit from you having none. Helping family can be beautiful, but help should be honest, limited, and respected. Love should not require you to disappear. That is the lesson I carry now. I am not against sacrifice. Every family survives because someone gives something, but sacrifice becomes dangerous when it is demanded from the same person again and again, then erased so someone else can be praised. I spent years believing that being the shadow meant I was loyal. Now I understand that I was standing in the dark so Nolan could look brighter. The night he told me I would always be his shadow, he thought he was reminding me of my place. Instead, he showed me the door out of it. My parents still have hard months. Nolan is still rebuilding. I am still healing from the guilt that comes when you stop being useful to people who only valued you that way. But my money stays mine unless I choose otherwise. My peace is no longer negotiable. My love is no longer a payment plan. And if someone ever looks at me again and says I belong in their shadow, I know exactly what I will do. I will step aside and let them find out what I was holding up. So tell me, if you were in my place, would you stay quiet to keep the family comfortable, or would you finally step into the light and let the truth speak for itself?
Behind this video is the team working hard to create a story that feels emotional, dramatic, and meaningful for the audience. Please remember that everything here is fictional and made only for entertainment and educational purposes. We hope it leaves viewers with a lesson about strength, dignity, and the power of finally choosing yourself.